Welcome back to Trading 360. I'm Diane King Hall. Time now for the big three stocks, 3 charts and 3 trades. Ben Watson will take us through the charts. And here to take us through the trades is Jessica Inskip, Director of Investor Research, stockbrokers.com. It is great to be with both of you. Ben, I talked to you earlier today, so I'm excited to see you again. Jessica, always good to see you. Before we get into your stock picks, I want to get from you a big picture take on the market. We've crossed that 6,000 level, have held on to it. What's your sense about where we stand today? Is it just game on for the bulls?
Well, I hate saying it's just game on for the bulls, but most dangerous place for the market to be is in a euphoric state. So I want to be cognizant of that. I think it's really great that we've got these talks with China. I think that's a focus on AI. Again, what Jensen Huang stated, we want Chinese developers, because 50% of them on AI are in China. We want them developing on US stack. If we see them developing on US technology stack, that's what I'm looking for in a deal, in addition to tariffs, to give us some more clarity. But the market likes the thought of certainty. We're really moving on soft data lately. It's CPI and the inflation data could certainly be a catalyst, but I think the market is really, really liking the thought of some certainty, some more clarity. We're approaching those all-time highs. I just want to be cognizant, though, that we are in a euphoric state, and that's a dangerous place. That means bad news could send the market down very quickly.
I like the caveats and guardrails that you've put on this. And to be fair, that's kind of how the price action is kind of inches. I've been, to me, it feels like, when you're watching a football game and you're trying to get to that first down or the next down and you're moving by inches. All right, Jessica, let's start out with your first trade on your list. You've got Talen Energy on your list. It's made quite the run this year. What's your view on this one?
So this is all about the energy story that has to do with AI, and AI securities and companies are having to get very creative when it comes to energy. We have increasing grid pressure and we can't meet that demand. So there's lots of deals that we've been seeing. We've had this nuclear energy story. This is flagged to me because of Amazon's 20 billion data center deal that they're having, and Talen Energy is going to be a beneficiary with that, with some infrastructure in Pennsylvania and that nuclear plant. Now, I think it's really interesting, the creativity that's coming here. It's called behind the meter, BTM, because in finance, we love to throw acronyms everywhere, but it's essentially connecting the data center directly to the power plant, and it bypasses congestion. But the issue with that is it raises concerns for consumers within the area. Is that going to raise issues as far as people needing electricity for their everyday needs? That comes into regulatory roadblocks. So that's the big headwind. But the positive here is the catalyst for Talen Energy that could help send it higher is those regulatory roadblocks having signs of progress, with Governor Josh Shapiro publicly backing, if you will, this Amazon investment, which is definitely a confidence boost to the path forward. So I think it's important to pay attention to this, but it's a broader theme that we're going to see as grid pressure is absolutely a problem. I'm looking for companies that are solutions to that take this headwind, make it a tailwind, and Talen Energy, I believe, is that. The catalyst, of course, is regulatory roadblocks being lifted.
Okay, Jessica, great perspective there. So, Ben, I know Jessica said we use acronyms for everything in finance, but you're like the best at kind of breaking through all of that. No pressure. You don't have to bring, I know you always come with it. But what are you paying attention to when it comes to the chart for Talen Energy?
Sure, and I'm glad that Jessica's here. She and I are going to be together in Miami on Friday at our Schwab Market Drive, so I'm excited for that. But I'll tell you what, talking about Talen Energy, from an energy perspective, you think about this and you look at the trend. I've got a 9-month daily chart here, and the 200-period moving average, in this case the 200-day moving average, has really been that kind of nice, gentle, soft upward movement, consistent with what the stock has been doing. 250 has been a challenge, but speaking of that energy and energy behind upward movement in this stock, I think becomes a concern. Because if you look at the RSI, there's your first acronym. We're seeing a little bit of a break in the diagonal uptrend line on the RSI, that relative strength index. If you look at the next acronym, the MACD, the moving average convergence divergence, in that bottom corner, you're seeing lower momentum. So while this still has energy to the upside, that energy is waning a little bit. It's a little bit like a solar facility powering down as the sun starts to set. Nevertheless, price is holding this support at 250, which was previous resistance. And I think the clarity that comes from having these big euphoric moves is that it's given us some resistance levels that have now got the possibility to become support levels on the way back down. For investors, that adds clarity because now they can make those if this, then that statements around areas that have been previously tested instead of plunging ahead into kind of uncharted territory. So if this breaks 250, some investors might think, then exit the position. Or on the other side of that coin, if this bounces off of 250, then add to the position from that standpoint. That's that clarity of decision-making process that technical analysis brings. Diane?
Love that explanation. Love the explanations in general because I feel like this just became very educational and it lines up with what I often see you do on social media, Jessica, educating people. Now, for people who didn't know, they do understand what RSI is, what MACD is. All right, Jessica, you're up next. Let's talk about the next trade on your list. You're looking at Broadcom, ticker AVGO. It has, over the past month, similar to what we've seen in the Mag 7, gained some ground, recovered some significant ground. So what's your view on where it goes from here?
Yeah, thanks, Diane. And I'm all about bringing education. I think that's great. And I am excited to be in Miami with you as well. But AVGO, the market, again, that euphoric state, this is a really great example. Into earnings, this stock rallied very hard. And so if something comes in that the market does not like or investors do not like, it falls. And that absolutely happened here. They beat expectations and they gave positive forward guidance. This is a green flag in my view, but the market expected more from its non-AI revenue. That's where the setup matters. There was a big run up. There was a breakout above 250, which I don't believe we're above yet. So something definitely to watch. But this dip to me is just more about sentiment. It's short-term positioning. It's less about fundamentals, if you will, but there's strong AI momentum. They guided very, very high, and it's a buy the dip opportunity to meet. So the story going forward that I'm looking at is how fast is Broadcom's AI business growing? Are they're already delivering upside against expectations when it comes to AI. And we've seen lessons. I think the market is just really scared of that Kodak mentality where there's companies that are diversified and not just focused on AI, that perhaps it'll hurt them more. And we see that with Google. We're seeing this with Broadcom, and I'm seeing that more broadly. But what we're missing is that companies have become resilient, agile, and are more adapting. And I think that's the story here. So as I see revenue grow on AI, it's okay to see the other dissipate as long as this one overcomes it and it's exceeding expectations. We are certainly on the path forward in my view for that.
Okay, so Ben, that begs the question then, Jessica mentions the story. What's the story that you see when you look at the chart for Broadcom?
Well, when we talk about a story, I mean, context matters. And I think the context that Jessica brought up is the fact that this came on an earnings announcement. And we see a shift post the earnings announcement. So good numbers, but the guidance may be a little bit softer and not as aggressive as investors wanted to see. And so we saw that change. And that tone change came with the break of the RSI line, meaning prices are closing closer to their lows than they are to the highs. That's what that indicator looks at. MACD, same kind of thing. You're seeing a slowdown in the short-term moving average versus a longer-term moving average. And again, that's seeing that price pullback. If this had occurred any other time other than right at or after an earnings announcement, I might look at it from a technical perspective and say that's simply institutional investor positioning, in that they bought it as it was going up and then they let it settle back down for a couple of days, and then they take that boy band approach of buy and push it back up again. But I think from a retail trader perspective, this comes as a function of, hey, it's not ideal. We're going to rotate out and maybe look for other opportunities. If it finds another level of support, maybe down around this 236 where it was a previous resistance, then maybe that becomes that buy the dip or that bounce possibility. But again, technicals will bear that out, and we'll see if that happens. It's kind of caught in that limbo zone between that 247 and 236 range at the moment, though, Diane.
Okay, I am trying to hold back Ben from doing this. Bye. I'm sorry, I have to.
I am so with you, Diane. I heard the Inskip reference, and I am sitting on my hands.
It's like it triggers you in a positive way, obviously.
Yes, it does.
All right, Jessica, let's talk about the last ticker on your list, Coinbase. What's your view on this one?
Also, speaking of boy band references and bye, this is a volatile play, really on crypto momentum. So I come on here often, and oftentimes my picks come from my technical scan, which I just look for a crossover of the 13 and 26 weekly moving average, 1 2/4 worth of pricing as a signal, and then I verify from there. So not everything on that list is, but I run that on just the breadth of ETFs available across the market, domestic and internationally. And there were at least 30 Bitcoin that showed up. So I want to look for some exposure to that. And that's where Coinbase came into play. So showing up on that technical scan, what's important to know about Coinbase here, it is very sensitive to crypto prices and trading volumes, which means it also has a really high beta. I think last time I checked, it was about 3.28. So the market moves at 1. This moves 3 times more than the market. So this is a volatile security, not for the lighthearted to add to your portfolio. So I want to make that sure we know that. But there, like we've been discussing, there's some regulatory tailwinds that are emerging across this crypto space, tokenization space, digitization, the stable coins even. We saw that with the Circle IPO. This is all just interest that's happening, and I think we're going to see something bigger within that space that has to do really with technology, but it's actually efficiencies that I'm focusing on. So with this, just watch Bitcoin's price volatility. It's very much linked to that because of the trading fees and AUM fees associated with that, but that could weigh heavily on Coinbase. But I like the exposure that it has to Bitcoin because I'm bullish at Bitcoin on this environment.
Okay, all right. So, Ben, you're up next. Take us through then what you're paying attention to when it comes to this chart for Coinbase.
Sure. So this is a stock, again, that's been moving sideways roughly in the last month or so. You can see that reflected in the 200-period moving average over the course of this chart. But it's established a pretty solid resistance level. So if we're just looking at technicals here, right? Technical analysis suggests that maybe there are better times for traders to enter a trade than others when there is clear evidence that momentum and price is moving in a particular direction. So that 270 resistance, a break above that, again, going back to that if this, then that. If price breaks above 270, then that's a breakout, suggests some upward movement. But you're seeing RSI tailing off. You're seeing momentum as far as the MACD is concerned tailing off a little bit. So you might say this, investors stepping in at this particular point in this confluence of this ascending triangle are simply tossing a coin in a fountain as opposed to waiting for that break above resistance and trading what they see happening as opposed to what they wish might happen here, Diane.
All right. Thank you, Ben. That's our Ben Watson, Senior Manager of Trading Services here for Charles Schwab, and Jessica Inskip of stockbrokers.com. Great insight on Jessica's list today. You had Talen Energy, Broadcom, and Coinbase. Thank you both.